Hey, Facebook family. Didn't expect to see me so soon, did you? Um, some breaking news, and I needed to come to you and just have a conversation with you real quick about it. And I'm going to be sharing this with, you know, sharing it on my timeline. Please share it on your timeline and chime in if you want to and tell me what you think about what's going on in the news today. So let me just start real quick as I share this around with Paul Manafort and what's going on with him. Light sentence, slap on the wrist. What was it, 47 months, a little over 4 years for Paul Manafort for um, all manner of foolishness. Listen, you guys, those of you that, are so inclined and just want to be criminals, you guys are committing the wrong kind of crime out there. Y'all need to be, hiding money in other banks and lying to insurance companies and all sorts of other foolishness if you want to get the Paul Manafort homie hookup, right? I forgot. I hope you guys could hear what I was saying. My microphone was laying somewhere way far away. But anyway, yeah, so Paul Manafort, he came climbing, crawling into court this morning or this afternoon. Hang on. Came crawling into court this afternoon, talking about his gouts acted up. Y'all know he been eating bad all week on purpose, right? So he could look all pitiful and sorrowful when he came in to court today in his wheelchair, in his prison little costume. And it worked. Clearly it worked. So he got the homie hookup. And so listen, you guys, don't be mad. Don't be mad at Paul. This is why, a couple of years ago, those of you who have been around doing this thing that we do together have heard me say voting has consequences and not voting has consequences. And so, federal judges are lifetime appointments. And, little Tink Tink, he's been behind the scenes just appointing federal judges left and right. You guys not paying attention to that because you too caught up in, Return to Neverland and R. Kelly interviews and Jussie Smollett and Nigerians, right? You guys are paying attention to the wrong stuff. So now we've got these lifetime appointment federal judges who do what the heck they want when folks who look like them come before them. So you got an opportunity yet again to make it right. You're going to have an opportunity in 2020 to vote, and don't just vote, for the big stuff, the pretty pictures, right? Because I know a lot of you, you don't like to read stuff. You just like to see the pretty pictures, right? So you got to pay attention to down ballot stuff. You got to pay attention to district attorneys who are the ones that ultimately get police officer involved investigations presented to them and then decide to not prosecute like we talked about a couple of days ago. District attorneys are elected positions, judges. And listen, I'm guilty too. So, I can't be too hard on you because I'm guilty too of not doing my homework all the time when it comes to judge appointments and who are they and what do they believe in and what is their record like. We need to pay attention to that kind of stuff so that we can make sure that the people that are in these positions are the people that need to be in those positions. And so, this Manafort thing is just a manifestation, no pun intended, of what happens when, we don't pay attention at the ballot box, right? So, I want to talk a little bit about that. And also, let me say this because I forgot to say this yesterday. I got so caught up in the LAPD revenge porn thing that we talked about at the end of my broadcast on yesterday. I forgot to acknowledge and congratulate my sister in blue, my sister in law enforcement, Sonia Wiggins Pruitt, over at Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. Congratulations, Sonia, on being promoted to the rank of captain. And Sonia is the first Black female captain on the Montgomery County, Maryland Police Department. So job well done, sister girl. And for those of you, and why would you know, Sonia is also involved in the National Black Police Officers Association, which is a group of police officers that are around the nation who, talks like I do, who thinks like I think. And, while, I get a lot of people asking me, if there are others who think this way or why aren't there others, they're out there. But, I believe that there's a concerted effort to keep us away from each other, keep us quiet, um, make sure that we only have access to a small mighty group of people, right? And that's why when I come on with you, I always ask you to share this on your timeline so that however many friends you have will be able to hear what you're hearing. Because I do believe, and I'm not into conspiracy theories, but I do believe that there's a concerted effort to make sure that you don't know that there are Black police officers out there who are not okay with what's going on a national level. So again, Sonia Wiggins Pruitt, Captain Sonia Wiggins Pruitt, congratulations to my sister in blue. Also, I forgot to talk about this, and it's kind of old news, so don't judge me. But I know it was going around on the timeline. Many of you probably saw this, but I'm gonna say it again because when I first talked, well, I didn't talk about it, but when I first saw this story, I didn't really pay much attention to it because I made an assumption, and shame on me for making that assumption about what was really involved. But what I'm talking about is the Black guy who had said that back in December, his wife had rolled her car window down and saw a panhandler begging for money, said she had a baby, and the lady rolled her window down, and her name is Jacqueline Smith, and gave this panhandler some money. And then some guy came up from out of nowhere, stabbed her to death, and they took off. Well, you guys know that didn't happen that way, right? You understand that now the husband, her husband, and his daughter, her stepdaughter, were arrested about 20 miles from the Mexican border. They were trying to get up out of town. And so, my guess is once I read the story and I found out what was really involved, and I read that, he said this happened about midnight. All three of them, his 28-year-old daughter is riding around with him and his wife at midnight. Look, my children are younger than 28, and I can't even get them to ride around with me in the car in the middle of the day. So what's the likelihood that this 28-year-old woman was in a car with him and their wife at midnight driving around when she was stabbed by this person begging on the side of the road? And then, of course, the story that the husband gave, Keith Smith is his name, I believe. The story that he gave was that he took off running after the suspect and heard his wife crying for help and turned around and went back. Once I read and understood the story that he gave, I knew that the police didn't believe that bullshit when they heard it, and that it probably just took some good investigative work between December and now to get him and take him into custody. I would imagine that, there were probably some surveillance cameras and things that they needed to request and get copies of and blah, blah, blah. And so that's why we're just now hearing that he was arrested. And what I also found out, as I started looking more into the story of this guy, his name is Keith Smith. What I also found out is that he had committed a series of robberies, bank robberies, some years ago. He committed 3 bank robberies. And the reason it was reported that he committed these bank robberies is because he was in some debt, had some medical issues. Allegedly, he's HIV positive and he needed some money. So he committed these bank robberies, used a gun in the commission of them, waited about 5 months, and then committed a third bank robbery. And I think that's when they caught him. And he ultimately did a 12-year prison sentence for this bank robbery. Now, it's not known by this woman's family, the way the story goes, whether or not she knew about his previous criminal history, but nonetheless, he had one. And so very, very sad that this woman lost her life, because then it makes you wonder, okay, so if someone else didn't stab her, who stabbed her? Did the daughter stab her? Did her husband stab her? And how long was she alive knowing that the people that she trusted, lived with, cared about, did that to her? But anyway, they got him. And so he's stupid, right? Because his dumb butt was on his way to Mexico when, really, if he had a brain, he probably
coming from Maryland. Wouldn't it have been closer just to scoot over to Detroit and maybe try to get to Canada? But he's trying to get to Mexico, as if nobody would recognize him in Mexico, or as if he wouldn't stand out just a little bit in Mexico. Anyway, thank goodness, they got him before he was able to get out of here. And yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk about that. It's a little dated now, but nonetheless, for those of you who may not have heard about it, I wanted you to know that the husband and his daughter, she's 28 years old. I forget her name. It's not important, but anyway, they're both in custody now. So the breaking police news that I wanted to talk to you about, and in a minute, I'm coming to Mr. Kelly, because we got to talk about that interview this morning. And for those of you that haven't already heard, the third part of this drag along that CBS is doing will be tomorrow night, Friday night at, I think it's 8 p.m. Central. Gayle is going to show the last part of her interview with R. Kelly, and I don't know how long it's going to be. I think it's scheduled for an hour. So, I may talk yet again about it after I see what foolishness he has to say on tomorrow. But today, the young girls talked. But before I get to that, on Wednesday, I had mentioned to you about a police officer in Palm Beach, Florida, who was standing trial in the shooting death of a young man by the name of Corey Jones. That was a quick trial, you guys. It had just started, I believe, this week, and so it's already a done deal. I mean, it was pretty obvious that this officer had lied. There was a recording that showed that he tried to create an audio 911 call that would substantiate him executing this young man. And because the young man had used roadside assistance and had called them, and they had also created a recording, the truth was known. So today, the jury came back. They deliberated for a total of 4 hours before they found this officer, and his name is Nouman, Nouman, is I guess how you pronounce it, Nouman Raja. He was found guilty of manslaughter, attempted murder of a stranded motorist. Well, attempted murder and manslaughter is what he was charged with. And of course, he had already been previously fired because this happened back in 2015. This officer is 41 years old, and he's facing a possible life sentence in prison when it comes time for the sentencing. So 4-man, 2-woman jury deliberated 4 hours and found him guilty. So now we wait to see what happens in terms of the sentencing that this officer, fired officer Raja, is going to receive in the murder of Corey Jones in Palm Beach, Florida. And, I'm hopeful. Generally, I'm not, but I'm hopeful, and I'm believing that these charges are going to get him a pretty stiff penalty, because it sounded from everything that I read that they were pretty, the authorities, the police department, surely even the prosecutors were really disgusted with this officer and the manner and the lengths to which he went to try to cover up that he killed this young man. So that was the breaking news this morning that I wanted to share with you. And so just real quickly on to R. Kelly, because there was a lot of back and forth on my timeline about these girls. And listen, when I saw these two heifers this morning, I was so glad that I had all sons. And that's not to say that, there aren't many young women out there who are upstanding, upright, and are nothing like these two. But just me knowing me, well, if I had a daughter like that, if I had a daughter, first of all, she probably would never have that kind of a mindset, because I would have been, doing what I did with my boys early on and making sure that, I raised a young lady who wouldn't put herself in a predicament to be taken advantage of like these young girls were. But, on the one hand, you kind of feel bad for them because they're stupid. They got a 21 and a 23-year-old brain that they're operating with. And on the one hand, I feel like, everybody has a right to self-implode if that's your thing. But on the other hand, I feel like as a mother, you never turn your back on your child and you never give up on them. Sometimes you have to have a little tough love, and you have to let them go ahead and fall down. Hope that they don't hurt themselves too bad when they do. but be there to pick them up. And it sounds like that's what these parents are trying to do now. They're trying to be there to pick these girls up. The problem that I have with the parents is I'm wondering, were they too busy trying to be a friend? Mom, were you too busy trying to be a friend rather than be a mother to this girl? Each of the parents, were you too busy living vicariously through your daughters, that you allowed them to get into a situation where now I do believe that they are brainwashed? And it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen, because R. Kelly's back in jail for not paying child support. But to hear these two Nimrods talk about, well, he takes care of us, and we're very happy. That ass is happy right now. But if he don't get out of jail, and I don't know how he's taking care of you, because he's not taking care of his own children. But nonetheless, that was the story that they told. And I just found it very interesting that when Gayle tried to press the one girl, RZL Clay, whatever her name is, when Gayle was trying to press her, she did what you would expect somebody with a 21-year-old brain to do. Is she got all defensive, and she started almost like R. Kelly, jumping up and down, cussing and yelling and screaming about something that don't have anything to do with the question that was asked, because she was unable to articulate a response that really made sense. But to hear her say that she was there on her own, and her parents were, both of the girls were basically parroting one another and saying that each of their parents had paid R. Kelly money to prostitute them out, basically. And the one girl, Clay, Miss Clay, she said that her parents had sent threatening, extorting mails or messages to R. Kelly, demanding $20,000 in one instance if he didn't, or they were going to release pictures, is what she said. Her parents had pictures of her naked with R. Kelly, and they were going to release them if R. Kelly didn't give her parents $20,000. Now, that's some BS, because listen, only a 21-year-old would think $20,000 is a lot of money, right? What parent would do that for $20,000? I mean, if you're going to extort money from R. Kelly and you think he has money, why not go for the gusto? Why not ask for something that might really set you up right? But that was what the little girl said. And so, of course, as I'm listening with my supervisor ears, I'm thinking, well, if all of that is true, if these parents had put these, had threatened to extort money from R. Kelly, wouldn't he use the evidence of those letters and messages, email, text, whatever it was, voicemail messages, whatever they did, asking for money? Wouldn't R. Kelly use that to take these parents to court? Because a couple of days ago, R. Kelly asked us to use our common sense. And so when I use my common sense, those are the kinds of questions that I have. Where's the proof that these parents were demanding money from you, and allowing you to keep their daughters in your care? But anyway, it was stupid, and you guys know that it was stupid, those of you who saw it. And then, of course, many of you may not know this, but if you look on my timeline, because I did share the video from Gayle's interview this morning, one of the things that Gayle said, which would speak to you, I can't even say your name right now, because you were talking about how is it that they were sitting there together. My Facebook friend, David in Germany. What R. Kelly did is he was out of the view of the camera, even though he was not supposed to be in the room. He was not supposed to be present when these two young ladies were being interviewed. But what Gayle said he was doing is he was standing out of the view of the camera, and every now and again he would cough very loudly to let the girls know that he was there. And maybe that was some prearranged signal for them to either cry, curse, get defiant. But that's what was going on in the background. And I mention that because there is such a thing as Stockholm syndrome. And I think that, these young ladies may suffer from that, much like other victims who've been held in captivity. The name Elizabeth Smart, white girl who was held for years. There was another young white girl that had been found recently, maybe within the last year or two. I think Carrie McDougal, whatever. You can Google it and see. But these were young people who were taken very young, and their little minds were manipulated, and they walked out of the house and they went to the store and they mingled among the community, and they did all of that all the while they were being held by their captor. So there's a thing that happens to our psyche when we have been held and we've been deprived of who knows what, sleep, food, and whatever. And so for me, the fact that they were in court, they left, they walked there together, and all of that doesn't necessarily, and for me, mean that they aren't truly being a victim or continue to be victimized by R. Kelly. But anyway, either one or two things is going to happen. Either they're going to get hungry because he's in jail and he's not there to feed them, or they're going to get tired. They're going to grow up and they're going to come to their senses. One of the parents is asking to meet with their daughter with a medical professional, some kind of person that can do a medical assessment of their daughter and see if, in fact, this person is brainwashed to some extent. I don't know if that's going to happen because, again, listen, if R. Kelly was on the up and up, why wouldn't you want these parents to meet with their daughters? I'd want them to come and see their daughter so we can hurry up and put this behind us. There's a reason why he's keeping these girls from their parents, and they're just too stupid to see. But again, he asked us to use our common sense, y'all. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm using my common sense, and I'm using my police officer, police sergeant antenna to get me through this foolishness that they are trying to put forth. So one more day, Friday, 8:00 p.m. on CBS, Gayle's final interview with R. Kelly. And then I'm just going to touch on this real quick because, again, remember, I didn't watch the Michael Jackson documentary on purpose. But someone on my Facebook timeline had shared something, and I thought it was kind of interesting, and I didn't verify this. I'm just rereading it, almost like a repost, okay? But for those of you who, if your competitive spirit is sparked and you want to follow up on this, you can. But here's what this person shared with regards to the Michael Jackson documentary and these two men now who are claiming to be a victim. And so I'm just going to kind of read through it. So forgive me while I look away. But here's what was written. Robson, I guess, is one of the gentlemen, right? So Robson was 27 years old at the time. 4 years earlier, he testified at Jackson's 2005 trial as an adult that nothing sexual had ever happened between them. Prior to the trial, Robson hadn't seen Jackson for years and was under no obligation to be a witness for the defense. He faced a withering cross-examination, understanding the penalty of perjury for lying under oath. Both Robson adamantly, confidently, and credibly asserted that nothing sexual had ever happened. So that was the Robson guy. So then this person says, so what changed between then and now? A few things. In 2011, Robson approached John Branca. He was the co-executor of the Michael Jackson estate about directing the new Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil production. He says, number one, Robson admitted he wanted the job badly, but the estate ultimately chose someone else for the position. And then in 2012, Robson had a nervous breakdown, triggered, he said, by an obsessive quest for success. His career, in his own words, began to crumble. That same year, Robson's career, finances, and marriage were in peril, and he began shopping a book that he claimed he began shopping a book in which he claimed he was sexually abused by Michael Jackson, but no publisher picked it up. And then in 2013, Robson filed a $1.5 billion civil suit creditor's claim along with James Safechuck, who also spent time with Jackson in the late 80s. Safechuck claimed he only realized that he may have been abused when Robson filed his lawsuit. That lawsuit was also dismissed by a probate court in 2017. And so now in 2019, the Sundance Film Festival premiered a documentary based entirely on Robson and Safechuck's allegations. While the documentary is obviously emotionally disturbing, given the content, it presents no new evidence or witnesses. The film's director, Dan Reed, acknowledged not wanting to interview other key figures because it might complicate or compromise the story that he wanted to tell. So that was something that someone had shared on their Facebook timeline with regards to why, for them, those two men that were featured in that documentary were suspect. And again, I don't know. I don't know the story because I didn't watch it. It was suggested to me by a friend that I should, but I don't have any interest. So I'm going to leave that where it is because, like I said the other day, Michael Jackson is gone. And if all of that is true, what do we do with that information? He's gone. Yeah, so that's that. Not saying that I don't believe the victims, because I am a, one who advocates for victims. And so I'm not there. I don't know. I always err on the side of caution when it comes to someone who claims to be a victim, because I've been one. And I know what it is to have people tell you based on who you are or what kind of position you hold, or how they view you outwardly, that you can't be a victim of a thing. So I want to be sensitive to that. But I just personally don't really have a need to see that whole Michael Jackson thing. So anyway, recapping really, really quick. Thank you for stopping by. Corey Jones murder trial of the Palm Beach, Florida officer found guilty on 2 counts. I will come back to you and let you know what the sentencing is ultimately when that happens. And then, of course, the husband was arrested, Keith Smith, in the death of Jacqueline Smith, who he had purportedly said she had been killed by panhandlers in Baltimore. So that was my quick update. And thank you guys for checking in, and we'll do this again next week. See you on Wednesday, live at 5. You guys be good. Be safe.